Hello, my name is Cherie, and if you are new to my channel, welcome. If you've landed on this video, you've most likely taken an interest to sewing and are looking to purchase your very first sewing machine. There are so many different types of sewing machines out there on the market that it can be quite overwhelming to pick out your first machine. But hopefully through this video, you will be able to gain some insight and be able to pick out the best sewing machine for you. There are 4 basic types of sewing enthusiasts out there, and depending on which type of sewist that you are will depend on what type of sewing machine to choose. So you have your general purpose sewist who would like to sew everything from bags to quilts. Then you have your quilter, you have your bag maker, and your garment maker. Let's start out with your general purpose sewist. Your general purpose sewist is interested in making everything from garments to bags. And for that, you would want a sewing machine that just has a basic straight stitch and zigzag on it. And the rest of everything else really doesn't matter as much. So long as that machine can power through some relatively thick layers, you're pretty much good to go. The next type of sewist that I would like to talk about is the garment maker. And for the garment maker, you're not only going to want a machine that can do straight and zigzag, but you're most likely going to need a machine that can do stretch stitches for making knitwear. You're also going to want a machine that has a good buttonhole on it. And if the machine does not have a built-in buttonhole on it, that means that you will have to do manual buttonholes. Some people prefer to do manual buttonholes, but for most people, I think you're going to want a machine that offers a nice buttonhole on it. And last but not least, you're going to need a free arm for garment making. The free arm just makes it easier to sew around necklines and armholes without a problem. In front of me, I have a Kenmore 158 1941-2. This is my personal favorite machine for garment making because it has a free arm on it. It also has the regular stitches on the sewing machine and a switch that you can flip to go to your stretch stitches for sewing knitwear. The only place where this machine kind of falls short for me is the buttonhole. It does come with the buttonhole system, but that buttonhole system is very old and antiquated. So for the most part, I do manual buttonholes. But manual buttonholes aren't a problem for me, but they may be a problem for you. And for that reason, I would suggest getting a machine with a built-in buttonhole system on it. The next type of sewing enthusiast out there is going to be your quilter. And for the quilter, you're specifically going to want a machine with an impeccable straight stitch on it. And most machines that have a beautiful straight stitch are a straight stitch and straight stitch only machine. You're also going to want the throat space to be very wide so that you can fit large projects underneath. And you're going to want this machine to be one that can sew through thick layers, because when you are quilting, you have a top layer, your batting layer, and then your backing. And in addition to those layers, you also have a border that goes around the outside of your quilt project. So and at some point, you could be sewing through 5 different layers of fabric. So you want a machine that's very robust and that can go through thick layers without having any skip stitches. And last but not least, you're going to want a quilting machine that is able to load from the side or from the front. This way you're not having to remove your entire quilting project from the machine in order to be able to change out your bobbin. On the right, there is a Singer 404. This machine is not one that quilters generally like because it has a bobbin that loads from the top. With the top loading bobbin, that means you have to remove your entire project from the machine in order to be able to change out that bobbin. Also, the throat space underneath the machine is not that wide. So generally speaking, the 404 ends up being just a secondary machine to the quilter's main machine. And the quilter's main machine is usually one that only straight stitches with the wide throat space and the front or side loading bobbin, while the 404 would just be one for piecing different pieces together, because this 404 is a straight stitch only machine and it has a beautiful straight stitch for piecing, and that's mostly what I use that sewing machine for. The next type of sewist out there is going to be your bag maker. And bag makers generally make the mistake of starting out with a general purpose sewing machine and then getting very frustrated with their projects because they're not able to sew through thick layers. So for the bag maker, I would recommend skipping getting the general sewing machine and actually going straight for a walking foot sewing machine. You have your tabletop portable walking foot sewing machines and your industrials. For a first machine, I would recommend going with the portable. This way you can test out whether or not you would like doing bag making full time, and then from there you can make a decision to get a industrial. The industrials take up a lot of space, and for this reason I'm not recommending that as the first choice. Instead, the portable will work just fine. The portable walking foot will allow you to sew through a lot of thick layers without an issue, and having just a straight stitch portable walking foot is fine, but there are some that have the zigzag, which can be even better. Now, you have computerized sewing machines and you also have manual sewing machines. Which one do you pick? There are a couple of benefits to having a computerized sewing machine. First, you can better control the speed, because on most computerized sewing machines, it has a place where you can set the maximum speed, so the sewing machine will not go beyond its max. That way you don't put the foot pedal down and accidentally speed ahead when you don't mean to and screw up a project. On a manual sewing machine, you're most likely not going to have that feature, and this means that you will need to be very careful about how much pressure that you apply to the foot control when you're sewing. The other thing about a computerized sewing machine that is good is when you need to get specific millimeter stitch length or stitch width, because you can set your sewing machine to say 4.5 millimeters in length, and it's going to be exactly that every time, whereas on a standard manual sewing machine, there's dials on that machine and you can set it to 4.5 for example, but it might not be exactly on 4.5 because those manual dials are never as precise as it is with a computer. The third good thing that is good about computerized sewing machines is that they have a wide variety of stitches on them. Oftentimes you'll find a computerized sewing machine with 100 stitches on it or more. This means that you can do limitless decorative stitches on your projects, which is a really good thing if you enjoy decorating things. However, if you just get a regular manual sewing machine with just a straight and a zigzag, you will be doing just fine, because that is what the vast majority of people use anyway. Now let's get to some of the cons of having a computerized sewing machine. Probably the biggest con to having a computerized sewing machine is that it costs more to service the machine, and you cannot in most instances service a computerized machine at home, and you will need to take it in to be serviced. Whereas with a manual sewing machine, you can oftentimes service those at home without having to go to a service center. But a lot of times people will still opt to send their manual machine to a service center, and when they do, the price is going to be lower than it would be if you had a computerized machine. Another negative to having a computerized machine is that once that motherboard goes out, the machine is dead and you pretty much need to just purchase another one. Whereas on your manual machines, there's less moving parts and less opportunity for that machine to break down, so you can pretty much have that machine for much longer than you would a computerized sewing machine in most cases. However, I do know of some people who have had their computerized sewing machines for 20 years plus and never had a problem. The third thing about the computerized machine is that they oftentimes become obsolete. So you will see a computerized sewing machine with a ton of buttons on the front of it, or a green screen is what I call it, on it. And those are the machines like from the 80s and that, or early 90s and that sort of thing. And they look extremely outdated. And that happens with computerized sewing machines because computerized sewing machines become obsolete as technology quickly advances. And I have seen like the old Brothers sewing and embroidery units that work perfectly well still today. However, they have a different system for saving the files than what we would use today, like the large SD cards, which most people don't even use today. Those are on some of the older machines, which makes it harder to be able to transfer designs from a computer to your sewing machine. So obsolescence is definitely something to consider when you are thinking about getting a computerized sewing machine. Generally speaking, computerized machines are easy to use for the tech savvy person, but a little bit more difficult for the person who might not be as tech savvy. So that's also one other thing to consider. I bet you're wondering about where you should shop for a sewing machine. I'm not going to cover that in this video, but I'll probably create another video to cover that topic in more depth. Just stay tuned, and I'll catch you on the next one. Are there any tips that you have for those who are looking for their first sewing machine? If so, put it down in the comment section below. Also, if you have any questions about what to get in a first sewing machine, please do leave that down in the comment section below, as I will be happy to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to receive more sewing related content. Peace.